our applicant, but why don't you go ahead?
All right, hold on. Let me get my electronic device in place so I can read this. My selectman concern tonight has to do with the fact that, one, we are now facing a $2.3 million override in April. Two, history has shown me that it is unlikely that our current board will support a menu-type override. Three, given the financial situation of our residents, town, and global economy in terms of the housing deflation, 401k deflation, a bear stock market, and a clear slowdown now occurring in the business sector in general, which is underscored by the Fed's latest decision of a 3/4 point interest rate cut, along with a $180 billion stimulus plan proffered by President Bush as an emergency act to counterbalance the unfavorable economic climate, I firmly believe that the probability of passing this override is now at a historical low point. In other words, we should not confidently assume that this override will pass. Our current Plan B is that if the override were to fail, we would make uniform cuts of 6.5% across all or most departments and functions without any regard to prioritization. I believe that the first and primary job of a Board of Selectmen is to preserve, one, the public safety of the citizens of the town, and second, take care of the elderly. Everything else is priority number two. Now, I have in front of me a paper book called the Handbook for Massachusetts Selectmen. Massachusetts Selectmen Association, Boston, Mass., page 39, paragraph 3, and I quote, "At a minimum, selectmen need to understand how the security of the town's citizens are being protected to make sure emergency service personnel are carefully selected, well-trained, and properly equipped to monitor procedures and practices used to carry out this critical function. Therefore, I believe that the Board of Selectmen have an obligation to act proactively in this regard and to acquire a budget in preparation for a failed override that would account for preserving these life-supporting services. Therefore, I now make a motion to the Board of Selectmen to have the Board of Selectmen ask the FinCom to create a funding plan which would preserve the services and functions of police, fire, and the Council on Aging at the expense of any and all other functions and services that the town provides in the event that the April 2008 override fails."
The motion fails for lack of a second.
Have you asked for a second, Mr. Chairman?
Is there a second to Alan's motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion.
I appreciate what you've said. I don't know if at this time I'm ready to make any such motion right now, but I do hear what you've said very clearly, and I do support the issues of public safety overall. But I think that I'm not in a position right now that I would support that motion at this time.
Thank you for that input, Chuck.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. First of all, I think we will have a very full and thorough discussion of this with the FinCom on February 11th and beyond. We'll have a month to have these discussions. I think it's a little premature to have the discussion, but Alan, we all share the concerns about the economy. We're all very aware and very sensitive to taxes in this town. And the fact that some of us may be supporting an override doesn't mean we're not sensitive to that. We're also all extremely sensitive to the importance of public safety, taking care of the elderly in this town, and other services. And I don't think anyone is suggesting that we are totally dismantling public safety or the Council on Aging with the cuts proposed if the override fails. And finally, I would say the best way to deal with this issue is to pass the override so we don't have to face these draconian cuts throughout the town. On the town side, public safety, schools, and in every department. And I would look forward to a full and thorough discussion, when appropriate, when we're with the FinCom in a few weeks.
Joe, any comment?
I'm just digesting this. It's very easy to say, let's preserve police, fire, council on aging, anything else. These are all sacred to it. I've got 3, kids in the schools as well, and I don't see where. I think it's irresponsible to. I've read your website, Alan, where you come out and you say, just say no to an override, very clearly, and now to come out
To
and say
another override is actually
to
what I
this
said.
override.
Well, I said to another override.
And to, it's easy to say, but show me where you're going to, cut that additional, $250,300,000. Already, I think that's why we haven't gone to menu overrides in the past, because as a community, we have values that are spread across many realms, and we're responsible to all of our citizens. And to pit one against the other is not something I'm willing to support.
And I do think that does pit one department against another, and it does divide the town even more so, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'd like to rejoin, since we've all gone down the line. And
I have not had a chance to weigh in. I would not support this. I think, as others have said, obviously the cuts that are proposed are draconian. To exempt the Council of Aging, Police, and Fire will have an even more draconian cut on things like public education, public health, parks and recreation, many of the services that people in the town require and rely upon. I think it's really a simplistic view to say there are only certain things that can be cut. It's a complex balancing act, and the town has benefited from the advice and counsel of the Finance Committee, and I think it would be inappropriate to suggest that we should impose a set of value judgments on them in order to come up with an alternative budget. So I intend to vote against the motion.
May I rejoin?
We're still having discussion.
Okay. I just was handed a piece of paper by our town administrator, which shows that the Council on Aging is about $24,000, Fire is $73,000, Police is about $185,000, giving a total of $279,000, which is very close to the $300,000 that was just saved by going to 2.5 schools. What I'm suggesting is not something divisive and not pitting one against the other. I'm suggesting what the basic minimum obligations of a Board of Selectmen is public safety and taking care of the elderly, which is what's in this handbook. And I'm just saying that there deserves to be some prioritization in that area, and I'm asking for an alternate budget which would just preserve that.
Is there further public comment, or is there further comment on the motion? Fred, anything else?
I was just going to say, just from a process standpoint, they're going to propose a budget, Alan, on the 11th that recommends some amount of override. Not to presume their vote, but the practice has been to make the cut then proportional, town versus schools, the 69-31%. Once that happens, this board will determine, to some extent, the recommended cuts on the town side. And you can have that discussion, as Michael said, it would become at a later date. Unless your motion is suggesting, we don't normally give instructions to the Finance Committee as to how they proportionally allocate a failed override cut total. I think that's what your motion is suggesting.
Is it illegal for us to ask the FinCom to come up with a scenario that would preserve these functions?
It short-circuits their duty under the bylaw to recommend a budget.
Well, you're free to vote for or against this motion. We have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Chairman, why don't you just take a vote?